Hello and welcome into Running for Coverage. This is episode 13. We're pleased to have you aboard. Before we get started here, I want to remind you to follow us on Facebook. We now have our Facebook page up and running. If you are on that platform, Running for Coverage is the Facebook page. Just search for that. We've got over 300 followers already there. That's a great way to stay connected. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our free newsletter that comes out roughly every week. We will have more coming up as we get through a very busy race season in Jacksonville. Of course, it all leads up to the biggest race of the year in Jacksonville, which is the Gate River Run. And that brings us to our guest this week, Doug Alred, the head of First Place Sports and the race organizer for the Gate River Run, and a guy who has been really the central figure in the Jacksonville running community for so long. And always great to talk with Doug about the race and about what he's seeing in the running business as well. And we had a great conversation. We'll have that here in just a moment. We'll also get a nutrition tip from Kelsey Pontius coming up. You can visit her site at Meteor Nutrition. She does a great job, and follow her on social media as well, because she has some wonderful tips for runners of all styles, levels, genders, you name it, ages. A lot of great information that Kelsey shares with her expertise as well. So without further ado, let's get right to it as we welcome in Doug Alred, the race organizer for the Gate River Run, who mentioned this that this year things are different. There's a team competition that is involved, and things have certainly changed over the many years that the Gate River Run has been held, now zeroing in on 46 years now with the Gate River Run. This race has changed so much and has changed the Jacksonville running community so much through the years. I know it's tough sometimes to think about the history of this thing, looking back so far on it, but when you do reflect on how much things have changed, what really stands out to you?
Well, the things I think that have really changed drastically is the size of the event. I mean, it's when you go from Gate River Run was very fortunate. When we first when the race was first started, and Buck Fannin was the race director, and it was kind of his brainchild that he wanted to. He ran Peachtree and saw what they were doing up there. They just had gone on the streets and said, "Hey, we could do something like this in Jacksonville." Well, one of his best planning tools was that he got the newspaper involved in the race, and so they really promoted it. And Gate River Run was very fortunate. It started out with like over 2,500 people in the very first race, which is not the case for races like Peachtree and some of those. They started out with 50 people and grew their way up. But Gate started off at actually at that time it was called the River Run 15,000. And I think that's where we kind of hooked Herb Payton and Gate in, is that I think he ran the first one and got hooked. And then, in a little bit, I don't know if it's the first one, but he got hooked, and then he became our big sponsor. But the magnitude, because at 2,800 people, which is, we have a lot of races throughout the country that has 2,800 people, and we have several in Jacksonville. So they're not considered that big of an event, I mean, and when you take that 28 and then double it to 5,000 people, it gets a lot harder to do. When you take that 5,000 and double it to the next level and then keep doing that, it just gets to be more and more people to have to manage. And, so the thing that's changed the most, I think, since I started is the timing piece, because what we do with timing now, which is gives everybody their instant live results pretty much with a mega event. We could never have gotten to the level we're at with the old timing systems that we were using back in the beginning days, because we were stretching them with 2,800 runners. I mean, and it would take not just seconds, but it take days to get the results out. So that is the big thing, chip timing. And then of course, along with chip timing, which kind of came on the scene about now it's been about 25 years ago, is the instant results, that the ability of software to be able to put the results up so people can see their results, within seconds. So that's just a huge change. Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable. One of my favorite things to do, I've had the privilege of calling some of these races, and afterwards being able to pull up on my phone and say, all right, well, here are my friends doing this. This is where they are on the race, or here's what they've done. you have that immediate payback of what's been happening. It really does take the race to the next level. Now we've come to expect it now. So what's the next step in terms of this? Is
Well,
there
we're
another
working on.
technology?
Yeah, well, we're working on it. Actually, we're working with David Green and Splice right now. We're trying to get bring the picture technology to the level of race results, and by that, where you can see your pictures immediately. And we're getting there. And we really have been working on it hard this year. They did River Run this past year, and just since River Run, we've made great strides in the ability to be able to get pictures up live, the ability for you as a spectator standing on the side of the street. If you get in the Splice app, for example, and take a picture of somebody, it goes right into Splice, and people can look up and see your pictures on there as long as you've gone in and say you're going to take pictures with Splice. So what we're working on is the identification, so that once a picture is taken of a person, that they can they're using face recognition. But if you put your face in there, that's the most simplest way. If you put your picture of your face in the app, anytime it sees your face, it's going to plop it up and associate it with you. And so we're trying to also do the association with race numbers, so that you could just go in after the race and or during the race, or if somebody's watching you and wants to see your picture someplace, they can just pop your number in and your pictures will come up. So that's probably our next big thing. I mean, pretty much what's been the standard since day one almost is I think somebody had the idea right after some of the first red races. Hey, we could take pictures and sell them to people. And we're not trying to sell them to people. We're just trying to make them available, just like a timing piece. And but it's still been the same thing. Take your picture, wait 4 or 5 days, and they'll pop up on the site, and then you can buy them if you want. But so this is instant gratification again. So
Having everybody with the expectation with a cell phone to be able to do that. I mean, I just took my family down to Disney a couple of weeks ago, and you go in to meet the princesses, and my 4-year-old daughter's meeting the princesses. Well, they'll take your photo with their contraption, and you can buy it, or you just pull out your phone and take it, and what are you going to do, right? Everybody's got a camera now, so just being able to get that out there and coordinate it really is a big thing. The other big change, of course, this year for the Gate River Run is a team component for the first time. Take me behind the scenes of the conversations and how this came about, and if it's something you've been thinking about for a while.
Well, we used to do a team event years ago, and that's when it was really highly competitive. I mean, we'd have the Atlanta Track Club team, the Jacksonville Track Club team, the Athletics West, all these competitive teams coming in running, and it was always kind of nice. But kind of what's been going on in running, I think lately is it's become a whole the biggest change about the actual the people who are participating in the race is that it's become more of a social event. And so we felt like people would probably like to be able to, hey, let's get our team together and just see how we can do as our we train together every Saturday morning or whatever it is. So let's get our little team together and see how we do as a team against other teams. That plus we also felt like the corporate, because we have a corporate and an open division. So if it's you and your friends, you would be in the open division. So if it's a corporate division, it would be you and your fellow employees who want to compete against kind of the same concept where we got the corporate run coming up in a 2 or 3 weeks here. And it's kind of the same concept, just at a river run level. You can get in there and have a competition. We also we'll have the Team Spirit Awards for people who want to just corporation who just wants to put in a big team. And it's going to be hard to beat our biggest team. It's in the open division because Black Girls Run is doing their national convention here, and I think I looked at their team. They already got 100 people on their team, so the
bar has been set.
The bar's been set. Yes, it'll take something to beat them, but the so we just felt like it's just another real fun aspect of the race to be able to do and build a little excitement. Hey, you can come back after the race and get for example, you want to get one of those team tents and come back after the race and see, get in there and cheer yourself on as you see how your participants are coming in. And River Run's a long enough distance, I think, that the first finishers come in 40 minutes and the last ones come in 3 hours. So there's enough time in there to have a team tent and have a lot of excitement about hanging out and seeing how your team's doing.
And I've said this 100 times. There are so many ways to experience the Gate River Run. Whether you are an elite runner trying to win money, whether you're a top local runner who just wants to win the First Coast Cup, whether you're looking for a PR, you're trying to break an hour, or if you're just running with your friends and you can do it as a social run sort of thing. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to really experience that. And one of the things that you're grabbing the hat. Like top 10% is always a big one to shoot for if you're competitive. There are so many different ways to experience this race. And I know, marathons can be in a similar way, but I think the distance of this race kind of offers a different kind of 15K is not a race you see every day, but the length of it allows for a completely different experience based on how you want to approach the thing. And I know you hear stories from folks all the time about how they have experienced it one way or another, or maybe it changes one year to the next, or as they get older, some of the streakers have run it differently. Certainly, the distance is almost unique. You have to really search to find a 15K, but the fact of that distance, I think, really adds a lot to it.
Yeah, I've said that, I always used to think that the 15K, back when I was running races and when River Run first really got going, the 10K was the distance. I mean, because if you ask somebody, you run, you would ask them what's their 10K time, and then it kind of became the marathon. It was the distance they're looking to, but over time, the marathon has kind of fallen out of the what people would say was attainable form. So they kind of moved back to the half marathon, and it was kind of in vogue for a long time. And now it seems like people are backing up, and the 10K starting to come back, and the 15K falls in there as what you just said. It's kind of the longer distance race. It's more of a challenge. It's you can approach it from wanting to race it, or for a lot of, I'd say for a high percentage of the people, it's going to be running River Run come March 2nd, is going to be people who are just trying to make it around that course. And the number one thing that's on their mind is, I got to run 9.3 miles. And the last couple of miles, I got to go over the Hart Bridge. And I think that is a real challenge for people. And Gate River Run is definitely a bucket list item. And so I think that's, is that 15K distance has really fallen back into what I consider that challenging distance.
There are some, including Pedro Amazzani, who's been a record setter of the Gate River Run at his age group. He's a doctor, and he says don't run marathons, run a half or run a 15K. That's fine, but more than that puts undue strain on your heart. So to your point about how marathons have kind of come and gone, and the ultra has kind of come up in some regards. Trail runs especially have gotten more popular because maybe timing isn't quite as important there as the experience. So that 15K is definitely a challenge. And if you go out there, it's interesting you said that the 10K was the one that people used to ask about. The 5K is such a ubiquitous race now. You can find multiple 5Ks in the area most weekends. And, if you wanted to, you could probably go out and run 60 or 70 5Ks a year pretty easily without remarkable travel. So the number of people who have run 5Ks is a lot higher. 10K, not quite as often. It feels to me like the first one that I hear about from people is, oh, what's your 5K PR? That's because that sort of sets the tone. Are you a runner, or are you a racer, right? It's a little bit of gatekeeping maybe, but it gives you the idea of, all right, how competitive, how much are you really putting into this thing?
Exactly. You're right. I mean, there's 5Ks. We even have put 3 on in the weekend. Yeah. So, so there's a lot of 5Ks around, and it's still a great challenge. I always tell people, don't undersell the 5K, because a lot of people, I'm not going to run the 5K. It's kind of underneath me. I don't run anything unless it's a half marathon or a marathon. Well, what I always tell people is the biggest mistake that a lot of runners make is they go to the track, they work out on the track, and they run quarters, they run halves, and they might, if they're really stretching themselves, they might run miles. But there's no better speed workout than running 5Ks, because when you hit I can tell you, I run plenty of 5Ks, and no matter how well trained I was, when I got halfway, it was always almost perfect. You start sucking wind, and you got to try to hang on for another mile and a half. Greatest training in the world, and it's the greatest way to I always say, you improve your 5K time by 20 seconds. your marathon time is going to come down by minutes, and so it's so that's so 5Ks can be as challenging as you want them to be, but there's so many of them it's hard to choose from. And that it's a challenge we take every day, because we always going to go, well, we know we have this 4 or 5Ks that are really the big 5Ks in town, but how do you get that across to runners when they see a 5K every weekend, or to see 2 or 3 to choose from the weekend? So it's harder to get a good high quality feel out there, or get the mass participants out to a 5K. But so it's always a challenge.
And of course, part of that is the Grand Prix series, which you get some competition there, and we've had a couple of those Grand Prix races here already in the fall season that have come right down to the wire, 1 second or 2 second difference at the top. I wonder how, when you see these kind of results, you see a lot of the same runners, but I think it feels like there's a deeper top half, or top maybe 10% of the runners in Jacksonville right now. How healthy is the Jacksonville running community right now at the top? Is it growing? Are you seeing more top runners week to week?
Yeah, I would say yes. The answer to that is yes. I wish we could get them all to come out and race against each other more often. I think there's a pretty big base of pretty good runners in Jacksonville now, because there was a time when the base of good runners in Jacksonville was outstanding. I mean, and I was fortunate enough to be a part of that group. I wasn't one of the really good ones, but I got to run with them every day. And but we used to have a sensational group. Things that people probably wouldn't even believe now. I mean, at one time on our first place sports team, we had 5 guys that could break 30 minutes in a 10K. And they were 13 and 14-minute 5K runners consistently. But it kind of slacked off for a while. And but now I feel strongly that there's not as many as there possibly could be. But there is a lot of high quality runners in Jacksonville right now that are knocking out some pretty good times. Again, it's just hard to get them all out. And that's always been, I call it the American problem. It's always been an American problem, because you can't get the Americans to all come together and run unless it's in a national championship. And so they just don't want to do it, And so it always, this has been a little pet peeve of mine. I said, don't train your running career away. By that, I mean, don't always be training and never racing. I don't understand. I might rub some people the wrong way here, but I don't understand why people want to be trained to be a high trained athlete and never race. I mean, because that's the true test. I mean, when I was running a lot, I always wanted to see. I mean, I was too anxious. I wanted to see what the last couple of weeks had done for me, not let alone the last 4 or 5 months. So I just feel like so many people just kind of train their careers away, and it truthfully, I mean, now when you're at the end of your running career, you realize that it goes by pretty quick. So you don't want to waste it.
It's interesting. I'm not anywhere near being that level of a runner, but the training is the thing you have to do because you have to do it. To me, it's the races. That's the payoff. I mean, to be out there with other people and, testing yourself and measuring yourself as you do that. And then the sense of accomplishment after a 6-mile training run is not nearly as much as it is to run a 5K, to finish, cross the finish line, know what your time is in that, try to control yourself at the start don't get too hyped up and go out too fast. That sense of community to me is much more satisfying than the rigors of going out and train. Keith Brantley told me this on a little bit earlier. He hated the training, but he hated losing more. So he knew he had to do the training. That's why went out and battled and fought and made it to the Olympic team.
Yeah, and plus the things that's really changed now in running too. I would say, you asked me that question earlier. What's really changed a lot is the information that's available to runners. Because back when we first started River Run, nobody knew anything. I think everybody that was probably started training for the first River Run had these visions of they were going to be this next great runner. Because they nobody knew what to expect. Nobody knew anything about the training techniques. There was a few books out about Lydiard's book about long distance training and stuff like that, but it's so new that I think everybody thought, especially when I worked in the store back in those days, I think we saw so many running injuries is because people were pushing themselves so hard, and probably wasn't the best, but I mean, I still have those runners coming in the store today going, "Oh, I looked at those age group results. Boy, they're not as fast as we used to be." Well, they weren't as crazy as they're not as crazy now as they were back then because people they didn't know what to expect. They thought they could run the 100-mile weeks just like Bill Rogers or Frank Shorter, and many of them tried it. They got pretty fast, but a lot of them got hurt. And I just think that that's one of the other big changes is just there's so much good information now. I mean, I just think about those people, if they had those people had all that dedication back in the early days, if they had that kind of information and, and nutrition information and stuff that there is available now, they probably could have been a lot better runners than they were.
Really interesting to see how in all sports over the last 30 or 40 years, nutrition, training, recovery, all this stuff, and then the technology used in the sport has changed. Golf hugely changed by this. But running now over the last 10 years or so, the shoes have made a huge difference. And I talk about having that technology, and you have your Garmin watch, and it'll tell you, or whatever watch you have, your Apple Watch, it'll tell you a lot of information and data that you have there. But then to be able to couple that with improved shoe technology has made such a difference. You see this all the time, and I'm sure it's something you follow very closely to make sure you're up to speed on what's what the next step is, so to speak, with shoe technology. But there's been such a change over the last 10 years in the shoes too.
Yeah, I mean, shoes go through, after I've been in this for almost 50 years, you see shoes go through a lot. I mean, shoes have gotten, started out firm, they got softer, they got too soft, they got, now they're stacked high, they're zero drop. I mean, there's so many different aspects that to shoes. But a lot of it is about the recovery. I mean, being able to not only being able to to recover from your day-to-day training, but being able to recover actually during the race, because your shoes aren't requiring. I used to tell people this all the time, is that when you run, you have all these impact forces. So the more you can limit and this is what shoes have finally come around to, the more you can limit those impact forces, the better, because what has to happen is when you hit the ground, your body has to dissipate the shock that your body is feeling, and to dissipate shock, you use energy, and so if you don't have any of that shock, your body doesn't have to use that energy to dissipate shock. It can be used for running, and so that's a real simplistic way of looking at it, but that's basically what the shoes have come around to. They have found better and better materials that absorb the shock and they've even gotten, some of the shoes have gotten banned because they help you too much. You don't want shoes that help you run. That's the problem we're running into with golf right now, is that they made the equipment so good that the courses aren't long enough to handle the players that are playing it now. So so now they're talking about limiting the balls, but the shoes, you want them to absorb the shock and help you not get injured. But I think that the ones that can help you absorb that shock and not use your energy to do that, then they found those materials now, and it's really helping the runners, because we know, for the Kenyans, I guess you might say, they probably, any nutrition information they probably get is probably helping them become better runners as they become better runners, but obviously the shoes have just gotten so much better that it's really helping out a lot. And I always want to tell people, hey, if you tried running 20 years ago and you couldn't do it because you're just beating you up too bad, you might want to try again to see what happens. So.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing. And one of the most important things I heard early on when I started running was run slower. And I said, well, you don't even know how fast I'm running. No, but run slower. Just to build it up, to build up that base, and to get your body used to it, because it is a different thing. If you're a tennis player and you go in these short bursts, or pickleball maybe is more current thing now, little short bursts, or if you play basketball, it's a whole different thing, and you've got to train your body. So I'll turn this around for you. If there is a burgeoning runner, somebody who's just starting to get into the sport now out there, what are the things that you want really recommend to them in terms of getting started? What should they be thinking of, and whether it's gear or approach or nutrition, whatever it is, what is it that they really need to know about?
Well, first, yeah, I would, I guess this would be whether you're a young upcoming runner that's just starting in high school, or whether you're a guy or a gal that's been sitting around for years, not hadn't exercised a lot since maybe your old high school days 20 years ago or something like that. A little different approach, but I think the thing that they should be thinking about when they first, if you really want to get into a running program, it's got to be part of your daily routine. I mean, I just think it has to be part of your daily routine, because you can find 40 million different reasons why you're not going to go out and do it today. And what's the best way to get a routine? I think for most people, get running partners that's going to be counting on you to be there that next day. So for high school kids getting on the team, that's going to be that's that you get it right in one group. If you're somebody who hasn't run or exercised in years and you're looking for a group, join one of the clubs, or find a running group that meets on a regular basis. The problem with finding running groups is, if you're a beginner, most of the running groups are going to be too advanced for you. So you got to find that group. One of the things I would highly recommend is that, take a good form running class. But number one, I mean, the old adage used to be, well, just go out and run naturally. Well, most people don't. After analyzing people's running gaits for years, I can tell you, it's a whole different ball game. I mean, it's a matter of fact, for example, we quit using treadmills in a lot of our stores because we want to analyze how people run. Well, we found that when they're on the treadmill, you think they run okay, and then you get them off the treadmill and you get them out on the pavement and you go, oh, they're not the same, they don't run quite the same way. So we kind of quit doing that, and we would rather use video out on the sidewalk to do that, to get a real true look at what your running form's like. But so I think number one is get proper instruction on what is good running form. Number two is get good nutrition information, because I mean it's a whole thing. You want to get good training information, you want to get good nutrition information, and get yourself going. Because I can tell you one thing about running, and you probably can relate this to people too, is that as you start to lose weight from running, it gets easier. I mean, number one, because you're getting in better shape, but if you're just not carrying as many pounds, it just gets easier. And and the way you lose weight in running, I think, or any program, walking, running, is that consistency. If you do it every day, it's a whole different thing than doing it once every 3 days, or it just really, the payoff's there. One of the things I would say is that to get some good equipment that can help you monitor what you're doing. I mean, and a heart rate monitor is good to know. If you haven't been active in years, going to see your doctor and getting a little checkout, make sure you're okay. I mean, that's good for not only people beginning, but I highly recommend it to long-term runners, is that they start to think they're invincible and they don't need to get checked for anything. And then, as you get older, things just happen that even though you run a lot and you think you eat well, you might find that, you're still, because of your genetics, that things aren't going as well inside as you would hope they would go. So, and you don't want any surprises down the road. So, those are good. And then I would say, stay motivated. I mean, find ways when you're running to get motivated, because I feel strongly, if you go out every day and you run the same course at the same pace, at the same time, it starts to get a little, I mean, not at first, but eventually it'll start to get boring. So if you can mix it up, and there's a lot of different things with and you can learn that through reading or getting with some training groups that's done it. Mix up your training a little bit so that you get out and make it more challenging. And I mean, I would want to set my running up so that I have goals, and by attaining those goals is what keeps you motivated. I mean, and that goal might be simply as, I want to lose weight every week. I'll run, lose weight every week. I want to be able to Well, back when running was really first starting to boom, Nike had some really good slogans, and one of their great ones I still like is there's no finish line. Because I used to think that a lot. Is man, how far can you really go? Because you just, I used to think that I couldn't run further than 5 miles. Now I'm running 10 miles, and how far can I really go? So just that sense of accomplishment that that you get from just like what you said, you feel great about yourself when you do things that you didn't think you could possibly do. Hey, a year ago I was sitting on the couch and I weighed 50 pounds more than this, and now I'm out running and I'm challenging myself, and there's just no finish line to where I can go.
I've had a couple of races where I felt like there was no finish line. Where is this thing? When is it going to end? That's a whole different approach, I think, a whole different spin on that theory. All right, last thing, Doug, for folks who want to get signed up right now, obviously, just to get into the river run is one thing, but for those who are looking for a specific time and to get into those different waves, what's the mentality now? If you think, hey, I'm going to run a little faster, I might be able to get up into this next wave coming up a little bit later on. What should people be thinking about from a timing standpoint of registering?
Well, we'd like to have everybody registered now. That's our goal. But but realistically, if you're trying to qualify and you're not really, I'll tell you this: qualifying for the first wave is a lot easier than people think. I mean, but it requires what we've just been talking about. It requires some training, and you got to race, because I mean that's what it comes from. I mean, if you want to get in that first wave, you've got to run races and get qualifying times. Now, October 1st just hit, and I can tell you something that I used to tell people all the time. If you'll train through the summer, which I'm sure there's a lot of new runners who have done it, if you train through the summer, I don't care if you run one step further than you were in the spring. If you train through the summer and keep that kind of training up, or even 70% of that training, you're going to be shocked when the cool weather hits come about October 1st. And so I think a lot of people are probably a lot faster than they think they are. And if they go out to some of the races, and the races are now, you only have to run a 5K. You don't have to go any further to qualify. And there's so many 5Ks coming up. There's so many good fast courses, and people can qualify. And that's, that. And what I would say is that, yeah, you can save $5 if you sign up right now, but if you want to get in that first wave, because once you sign up, we can't move you because it's just too complicated to start moving a lot of people around. Wait and qualify, run a few races and see where you're at, and try to get that time. And if you run a race now, for example, if you've been training some and you run a race now and you're close, train a little bit more and wait a few weeks, and you might find yourself, especially when we get to the real cool days. I mean, it's much easier. I mean, I don't care. I mean, I don't care whether you're properly heat trained or not. When you get that cool weather, you can run faster,
Yeah, it's a shot in the arm. It is the best thing about training in Jacksonville is when you don't feel like you're running in Jacksonville. In other words, as soon as the heat breaks, we've kind of had it here the last couple of weeks where it's starting to peter off a little bit. But then once you get that crisp morning and you get out, I mean, you're a whole new person. So it does make a huge difference. Well, Doug, thank you so much for jumping on here with us. Much appreciated. We'll circle back with you again as we get closer to the Gate River Run, of course, which comes up May 2nd. So March 2nd, rather. So be sure to get ready for that. There are a lot of folks who will start their training now. I think there are a few folks who will start their training January 2nd, maybe, and some who won't train at all. But
that's right, some won't train at all.
Those will be the ones walking by the time they hit Watney Park there at the halfway point.
All right, nice talking to you,
Doug. Thank you.
Take care.
Well, as the weather gets cooler, one of the things that a lot of us tend to do is look for longer races. In the summer, you can run a 5K, and certainly can put you through the ringer here in Jacksonville and in the hot summer months. But as you get a little bit cooler, races like 10K, half marathons start to be a little more common for folks to run in around the area. I'm looking forward to running the Thanksgiving distance classic, the half marathon coming up this Thanksgiving. And one of the things I've been wrestling with is figuring out how I should be preparing from a nutrition standpoint leading up to the race. And we talked to Kelsey Pontius about some good tips about your nutrition and your fuel on race day and the race week leading up to start.
If you've never taken nutrition before, then I typically recommend starting with something like 15 grams per hour, just because your body, just how you can practice running marathon pace, your gut actually makes adaptations in the body so that you can tolerate your fueling better. So a good strategy to tolerate more fuel, which, as a sports dietitian, I think the more fuel you can tolerate, the better. Is to start using these fuels so you make those adaptations in your body, specifically in your gut, so that you have no race day surprises, because we're literally talking while there's a hurricane outside. There's so many uncontrollables when it comes to running, and so we don't want fueling to be like there to be any unknowns of how we're going to do with things. So I would say starting small and then realizing you can gradually increase your fueling, especially as you start to increase distance and need a little bit more per hour as you tack on mileage. And then, as far as like what type, that's kind of that decision. Do I want to use what's available on the race course, or do I want to, just know that I'm going to wear something with a lot of pockets, or maybe a fueling belt that might have extra pockets in it, or extra storage, and just do my own thing.
All right, thanks so much for joining us here on Running for Coverage. Great stuff from Kelsey there. And as always, we want to thank Darren Ronan of the Ronan School of Music. He composed and performed all the original music used here on the podcast. Again, be sure to follow us on Facebook. We're on Instagram, and also with runningforcoverage.com. You can find us just about everywhere and sign up for our newsletter as well. Great deals there, ways to save money, and also save money on race entries, as well as save money on gas. There's a great program involved there as well. Thanks so much for joining us here on Running for Coverage. We'll talk to you next time.